What did I do with these comments here? SoulTrapMatrix. I love that name, SoulTrapMatrix. It's likely true that ascension is a deception. Ascension is a deception. I love that. Ascension is a deception. Oh, I can really, I can go with that. I feel that. Mastering 3D, whatever that means, seems unlikely in our short lives. Escape from this particular 3D is a more viable solution, but it's only available in certain states of consciousness, more predominantly in death. As I've said before, it's more accurate to say the matrix is the virus. The matrix system grows and fades depending on our participation in it. It is designed to perpetuate evil, to allow evil to exist. Just because your life is going well does not reflect on the vast majority of lives on this planet. The harvest of suffering continues regardless. I highly doubt everything in the Matrix is an AI or a program, considering the Matrix was created by raw consciousness. AI is just a helper, not the driving force of evil. To fix the Matrix is to join it and remain a part of it, because it is inherently evil. It was a choice to make it this way. Now, if you create your own matrix with different parameters and rules, that's a whole other matter. Each one of us can create our own universe. We most likely just got ourselves trapped in this one because we didn't want to be bothered with setting up our own game server. That's an interesting perspective as well. Not one that I agree with, but it's an interesting perspective nonetheless. But as I've said before, I don't think that this matrix was designed for pure evil. But it just depends on your definition of evil. I did a video about this, and people's heads came off. Like poof, everybody's heads just exploded when I said that evil is relative. You take a Christian, for example, and he looks at what we talk about here on Beyond the Veil. Self-empowering, knowing yourself. We are the divine forces. We are here to live in harmony with everybody and everything. Empathy, compassion, all of these things, and freedom. Most importantly, freedom to do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting somebody. They see that as evil because it goes against their moral standards. Their moral standards are everything in the Bible. And the Bible, unfortunately, is a very evil book. Slavery and women are property, and you shouldn't be able to do whatever you want. Pleasure is a sin, for example. If two men want to be together, that's horrible. If two women want to be together, that's horrible. I don't think that that's the case. I think that people should be able to do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting anybody. Simple as that. It's a simple standard I think every sentient being can agree upon. But they see me as evil. They see us as evil because of their programming, because of their script. But is that really evil, though? Is it really evil? I mean, I guess to a certain degree it is evil. When you think about the most Christian mindsets, they really want to see other people burn in hell. Like, that's like their ultimate satisfaction there, to see people like me burning in hell. And so they can sit there and go, well, we told you so, we told you so, we told you so. I don't want to see anybody burning in hell. I don't want to see anybody suffering. But when you derive pleasure from somebody else's pain, in my humble opinion, that is what true evil is. And I don't think this matrix was designed to be truly evil. I think this matrix was designed to have energy shifting from one place to another, which is why we eat animals, which is why animals eat each other, which is why the animals eat the grass, which is why it's a natural cycle of motion. And I've talked about this phenomenon before in my life, and I'm sure some of you may have experienced it in your lives as well, where you come to a traumatic situation and you observe it from a third person perspective. I think it's because, okay, so I guess let me take a step back, because the way that I came to this understanding was I was trying to understand, and this was many, many, many years ago, how nature is so cruel. How is nature so cruel? Animals eat each other alive. That's cruel. That is evil. That's horrible, but animals do it consistently. A fish will be bitten in half by another fish and then chomped on. I mean, that's just the way it works. And then I realized, oh, there's a fail-safe mechanism in this matrix. The consciousness of that animal, right before it's about to be eaten, actually leaves the body. And that made me realize, when I go back through some of the traumatic experiences that I've had in this matrix, car accidents, for example, a lot of times we don't remember car accidents. A lot of times we remember them from a third-person perspective. When I was in that car accident I was talking about earlier and I hit my head on the back of the thing, I remember seeing it as if I was sideways. I remember seeing the back of my head hit the metal thing on the back. It wasn't me remembering, oh, like that. It was me watching my head hitting the back of the machine. Likewise, there was another time I was driving. I started to hydroplane into an 18-wheeler, and I remember watching myself pulling out of that hydroplane and getting control of my car again. And I realized, oh, right before the point of impact of something like that, the soul or the consciousness actually jumps out of the body. And then it started to help me understand more how these rituals work. That the dark rituals, and I don't want to make this show dark, but I'm just going to say this really briefly, and I'm going to try to say it as light as possible. When these people are tortured like that, the reason the torture is prolonged is because the consciousness jumps out of the body before the point of impact, during all the trauma. So the consciousness isn't actually experiencing the trauma that's taking place. However, the purpose of these rituals is because this virus feeds upon that consciousness. That's the time when it can take the consciousness and instead of the consciousness moving into, at the point of death, moving into a cycle of reincarnation to be reincarnated again, so the energy keeps on moving the way the natural cycle is, this virus pushes the consciousness out before it can go up into the wheel of reincarnation, and it has it hovering here in this space. It's a very particular space that they get this consciousness hovering at so they can feed on it. And once they feed on it, they take it, and it no longer becomes part of the system, and it no longer becomes part of this wheel of reincarnation. Whereas when an animal is eaten or something happens to one of us, our consciousness jumps out of the body before the point of impact. We don't really feel the trauma that's going on. And then if our body dies, then we're back into the wheel of reincarnation, back into the matrix to be recycled again over and over and over and over again to create a perpetual state of energy. This is why this virus is so unnatural, because it's taking energy from the matrix permanently, and it's essentially killing that energy that it's taking out of the matrix. Now, everything was meant to move, and everything was meant to cycle. So you have to ask yourself, when a lion eats an antelope, is that evil? I mean, is that the evil you're talking about in this matrix? And if so, there's way too much of it in here to say that that's any other way but a design. I mean, you go back, even when humans weren't here, dinosaurs were eating each other. That's just the way the matrix was set up for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that it's the right way to do it or anything like that. It seems like a perpetual motion of energy, and even more so, energy sources which move and energy sources which are still. So you have trees and apples trees that make apples and make oranges and they make things like that, and you can go and you can pluck them and you can eat them. But let's say you're in an area of the matrix that doesn't have any of that, then you can find something that's moving as an energy source, which I think is why, like fish and things like that, I don't think that they have a consciousness like we do. I think they're more robotic. And the reason I say this is because I've caught the same fish 3 times in a row. And you would imagine if it had the same consciousness as us, it would go, hey, wait a minute, that plastic worm there equals me being pulled up out of the water and put on a boat with a hook in my mouth, and then that hook is going to come out. 3 times in a row, the same fish. It makes no sense. Some fish, though, dolphins, whales, things like that, they have a higher consciousness for sure. But I think that there's a hierarchy and an order here for a particular reason, and you move humans out of the equation, you still have the same thing. So can you say, well, that's all inherently evil? I don't think so. See, in my opinion, the evil comes in when there's a human infected with a virus. And it doesn't matter whether it's NPC or organic, both can be infected. And then what happens is that human body, it starts to feel good when it makes something hurt. It's a sadistic kind of thing. And so that virus, when it's inside of it, it feels pleasure for the body to make something else suffer. That's evil, in my opinion. I don't think when a lion eats a antelope, it feels that kind of pleasure. I think it's doing what it needs to do to survive. It's doing what its natural instincts are to do, to keep the energy moving. So I know that's controversial, and I could sit here and I can tell you all the other, we need to be vegans and we need to do this and we need to do that. But I unfortunately understand science. And as I've said before, I don't mean to be redundant. I understand what happened I said Yosemite in the last video. I understand what happened at Yellowstone National Park when we, the humans, hunted the wolves to almost extinction in that region. And then the deer started going crazy and started eating all of the vegetation because they were no longer acting as though predators were around, because there were no predators around. And then the beavers started to die because they didn't have enough vegetation because the deer were eating everything. So the deer were killing the forest and the deer were killing the beavers because the wolves weren't there. So we, as the humans, reintroduced the wolves into the ecosystem, and then the ecosystem started to flourish again because everything was brought to a perpetual state of balance because the deer started acting like there were predators around, so they stopped eating everything around. It's all like systems of checks and balances and everything that was all put to make things run really good. If we didn't have that example, then I can say, oh no, animals should never eat each other and so on and so forth. But we've seen vegans try to feed their cats vegan diets, and the cats die as a result. So, it is what it is, Anyways, I know these are controversial thoughts, and I don't want to offend anybody. I've tried really hard. That's like my mid-year's resolution, or my third quarter resolution. Don't offend everybody on the freaking broadcast with everything I say. But I gotta speak my truth, though. I gotta speak my truth. That's what it's all about. Molly said the cascading effect. Yeah, the cascading effect. It's very real. It's very real. Now, let me make this caveat, too. I agree that factory farms are horrible. They're an abomination. We should not make those animals suffer while we're raising them. And as a matter of fact, it taints the energy. So we're eating tainted energy by trying to mass produce and mass farm these animals. It's horrible. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And if that's the reason why people are like, hey, vegan, because of the factory farms, I'm right there with you. I just don't think vegan is the solution, because then it creates an imbalance within the body, and it's Agenda 21, and that's exactly what they want to do. Oh my God, this brings me to like a whole nother thought of overpopulation as well. Cherie and I have pondered this before. If the world really is populated as much as they say it is, I'm not saying that it is, because I know a lot of people are saying that there's not as many people on here, and I've started to speculate this as well. But if we had less of a population, would we need Monsanto? Would we need factory farming? Would we need all of that? Or could we go back to local farming for individual people? Individual communities, I should say. I mean, is that a possibility? Is Monsanto and factory farming a result of overpopulation and an attempt to fill a need to feed 7 billion people? Or are they just really evil and that's just what they do? They could just be evil people, and they're like, we want to make these animals, we want to torture these animals, and we want to sell this meat for as cheap as we can so we can make the profits and profits and profits. I don't know. I mean, me having multiple businesses in my life, I want to deliver the best quality product to our people. Hands down. I'm not about cutting costs. I'm not about raising profits. I'm not about doing any of that. I want to deliver the best quality product. That is the most important. And I think most accessible businesses want to do the same. That's why you have like Apple, for instance, that come out with these badass computers. They want to deliver the best possible product that they can. But then you come to Monsanto and it's like, well, are they filling a need? I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not saying anything. I will stop going on and on and on about this, though. All right.